Megan Turner sat alone in the dimly lit cafe, her fingers trembling as she stared at the silent phone. Outside, the rain tapped a nervous rhythm against the window. Tonight, after 27 years, a single message could shatter the silence, or finally bring the answers she had been chasing. Megan was no ordinary mother, a relentless investigative journalist. She had spent years chasing stories that others abandoned, but beneath her tough exterior lay a heart broken by the disappearance of her son, Ethan. Tonight's unknown call might be the key to unlocking a past she never dared forget. Megan Turner was known among her colleagues as a tenacious investigative journalist based in Portland, Oregon. At 38, she had carved a reputation for herself by exposing stories that others were too afraid to touch. Corruption, disappearances, and cold cases that haunted small towns. Her writing was fearless, often driving her deep into the shadows where truth was buried beneath layers of silence. But Megan's fiercest battle wasn't fought in courtrooms or newsrooms. It was in her own heart. 27 years ago, her 10-year-old son, Ethan, vanished without a trace during a school camping trip, despite exhaustive police investigations and countless public appeals. No sign of him was ever found. The loss shattered Megan's world. Yet instead of breaking her spirit, it forged a relentless determination. She shifted her career toward uncovering missing person cases, driven by a personal mission to bring light to those swallowed by darkness. Her days were a careful balance between deadlines and memories. Megan lived alone in a modest downtown apartment, its walls adorned with framed clippings from her most impactful articles. Each headline told a story, but none compared to the one she longed to rewrite, the story of Ethan's disappearance. Though the years passed, her search never wavered. Late nights were spent sifting through old police files, interviewing witnesses, and nurturing the hope that someday the truth would come home. Since Ethan's disappearance, Megan's life had been marked by a quiet loneliness that no amount of work could fill. Her world had contracted to the size of her apartment, the small space where memories lingered like ghosts. On her nightstand lay a worn photograph of Ethan, his bright smile frozen in time, a reminder of a past forever out of reach. Megan's relationships had frayed over the years, friends drifted away. Unable to understand the depth of her grief or the obsessive need to seek answers, she rarely spoke of her personal pain, burying it beneath layers of professionalism and determination. Yet those closest to her knew the toll it took, the sleepless nights, the sudden moments of despair, and the fierce hope that refused to die, despite the heaviness in her heart. Megan maintained a routine. She frequented a small bookshop downtown, finding solace in stories of survival and resilience. Weekends were often spent attending support group meetings for families of missing persons, where silent understanding replaced the empty words of strangers. Her grief was a living thing, ebbing and flowing with every anniversary, every news report of a new disappearance. But beneath it all was a quiet resolve. Megan wasn't just living with loss, she was preparing for a day when the truth would finally break through. And no matter how long it took, she was ready. It started with a simple message from an old friend. Megan's phone buzzed late one evening as she was going through piles of case files in her cramped apartment. The text was brief but electrifying. "You need to see this video. It's about Ethan." Curious and cautious, Megan clicked the link. A grainy video played a local news segment from a neighboring city, Seattle, about a memorial ceremony for missing children. Her breath caught when the camera panned to a young man standing quietly at the edge of the crowd. His features were unmistakable. The same deep-set eyes, the same determined jawline Ethan had. The video had gone viral in niche online communities dedicated to missing persons, sparking a flood of speculation. But for Megan, it was far more than speculation. It was a spark of hope she hadn't felt in years. She immediately reached out to Daniel, her trusted friend and lawyer, explaining the situation and her plan to investigate. Together, they pieced together what little information was available. The young man's name was Alex Parker, a barista at a small cafe in Seattle. There was no known connection to Megan or Ethan, but the resemblance was striking. Over the next few days, Megan dug deeper, searching public records, social media, and news archives. Every detail she uncovered painted a tantalizing picture. A man who had no known family ties in the area, whose past was largely a mystery. This chance discovery ignited something within Megan, a fragile thread of hope that maybe, just maybe, Ethan was still out there, waiting to be found. Megan's mind raced as she sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by scattered notes and printouts. The video of Alex Parker played over and over on her laptop screen, each glance fueling her determination. This was more than just a lead. It was a lifeline. She reached for her phone and called Daniel, her trusted confidant and legal advisor. His calm, steady voice was a welcome anchor amidst a storm of emotions. "We need to approach this carefully," he advised. "If this is Ethan, it's going to be complicated, legally and emotionally." Together, they outlined a plan. Megan would travel to Seattle to meet Alex in person, posing initially as a journalist conducting a profile. This cover would give her the opportunity to observe and interact without raising suspicion. Daniel promised to handle any legal matters that might arise, ready to step in if needed. Before leaving Portland, Megan gathered all the information she had, old photographs of Ethan, police reports, and a carefully prepared list of questions designed to gently probe Alex's past. She backed lightly but carried the weight of 27 years of hope, grief, and unanswered questions. Megan also reached out to Rachel, the family therapist who had supported her through countless dark nights. Rachel's voice over the phone was soothing yet firm. "Be patient with yourself and with him," she urged. "This will be as hard for Alex as it is for you." With everything in place, Megan booked her ticket. The journey ahead was uncertain. The quiet suburban town of Gresham, Oregon, was shattered by a chilling tragedy. A group of 12 fifth-grade students from Willow Creek Elementary School vanished during a routine outdoor field trip to a nearby state park. The day began like any other. Laughter, games, and the promise of a fun adventure under the warm September sun. But as the sun dipped low, the children never returned. The investigation was swift but fraught with frustration. Local law enforcement combed the dense forests and surrounding areas, but no sign of the children or their accompanying teacher, Mr. Harris, could be found. Rumors swirled of a well-organized kidnapping ring operating just beyond the border, specializing in abducting children to be trafficked overseas. Families clung to hope, while shadows of fear crept over the community. Despite the urgency, leads grew cold, and months turned into years without progress. The school was closed amid public outcry, and the parents were left to grapple with an unbearable silence. Megan, then a young mother with her son Ethan in that ill-fated group, plunged into a relentless search. Yet the trail seemed to vanish like mist, leaving only heartbreak. The trauma rippled far beyond Gresham's borders. National news covered the disappearance extensively, sparking debates on child safety and the failures of the justice system. But for those left behind, the pain was deeply personal, a daily torment of not knowing the fate of their children. Though time passed, the story refused to fade, haunting the memories of families, law enforcement, and a mother who vowed never to stop fighting. In the years following the disappearance, Megan threw herself into relentless efforts to find Ethan and the other missing children. She contacted every agency, spoke at rallies, and even appeared on national television. Pleading for information, police files became her constant companions, and cold leads littered her desk. Yet, every hopeful tip ended in frustration. The community's collective grief grew heavier. But Megan refused to surrender. Amid the struggle, Megan found unexpected allies. One of the most important was Rachel Simmons, a clinical psychologist specializing in trauma and grief. Rachel had dedicated her career to helping families like Megan's navigate the labyrinth of loss without losing themselves. Their bond grew quickly, rooted in empathy and mutual resilience. Rachel encouraged Megan to attend support groups, where she met other parents enduring the same nightmare. These gatherings became a lifeline, a place to share memories, tears, and moments of hope. The shared pain forged deep friendships, but also strengthened Megan's resolve to keep fighting for answers. While Megan's professional work brought her into contact with law enforcement and journalists across the country, Rachel helped her manage the emotional toll together. They crafted coping strategies and reminded Megan that perseverance required self-care. Though the case had gone cold, Megan's spirit remained unbroken. The support of Rachel and the community fortified her, preparing her for the unexpectedly that was about to change everything. After days of meticulous preparation, Megan finally found herself standing outside a small, cozy cafe in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood. The sign above read The Roasted Bean, where Alex Parker worked as a barista, heart pounding. She pushed open the door and was greeted by the rich aroma of freshly ground coffee and the quiet hum of early morning chatter. Alex was behind the counter, wiping down surfaces with practiced ease. His dark hair fell into his eyes, and despite his calm demeanor, there was a restlessness in his movements that caught Megan's attention. She reminded herself to keep the purpose of her visit in mind, to observe, to listen, and to uncover the truth. Introducing herself as a journalist working on a human interest story about local community members, Megan struck up a conversation. Careful not to reveal her personal connection, Alex was polite but reserved, answering questions with measured words and cautious glances. Yet, in moments when his guard dropped, she caught subtle hints, a flicker of recognition, a quiet hesitation. Over the next few visits, Megan returned, each time peeling back layers of Alex's guarded personality. They spoke about his childhood in vague terms, his hopes and fears, the places he loved in Seattle. Megan sensed a deep conflict within him, as if part of his past remained locked away, inaccessible even to himself, though the path ahead was uncertain. Megan felt a fragile bond forming, a thread of trust that might one day lead to the answers she had sought for nearly 3 decades. As days turned into weeks, Megan and Alex's encounters grew less formal and more genuine. Megan's initial role as a curious journalist slowly shifted as she began to see glimpses of the young man beneath the surface, someone struggling to piece together a fragmented past. Alex's guarded demeanor softened when they shared quiet moments over coffee, his eyes betraying a longing for answers even he couldn't fully express. Megan shared carefully chosen stories, tales of resilience and survival from her investigations that seemed to resonate with Alex. In turn, Alex tentatively opened up about memories that surfaced in dreams, fleeting images of a forest, the echo of children's laughter, and a persistent feeling of being lost. His voice trembled at times, revealing the pain he had buried deep inside. Despite the uncertainty, Megan never pressed too hard. She understood that trust had to be earned, especially when the wounds ran so deep. She became a steady presence in Alex's life, someone who listened without judgment and offered unwavering support. Together, they navigated the complex emotions that tethered Alex to a past he barely remembered. Megan's hope flickered brighter with each shared secret and quiet confession. The young man who might be Ethan was slowly returning to her piece by fragile piece. Their journey was only beginning, but Megan felt, for the first time in years, that the possibility of reunion was no longer a distant dream but an approaching reality. After weeks of digging, Megan and Daniel uncovered the shocking truth. The mastermind behind the kidnapping was still alive and living quietly in a remote cabin on the outskirts of the Cascade Mountains. The man, once a feared figure in a human trafficking ring, had managed to evade justice for decades. determined to confront him. Megan and Daniel arranged a visit under the pretense of a routine interview for Megan's investigative work. The cabin was secluded, surrounded by dense forest and the eerie silence of isolation. As they approached, the weight of years and unanswered questions pressed heavily on Megan's shoulders inside. The air was thick with tension. The kidnapper, a gaunt man named Victor Lang, greeted them with a cold, calculating stare. His presence was unsettling, a reminder of the darkness that had stolen so many innocent lives, including Megan's son. Victor spoke with a twisted calmness, refusing to acknowledge the full extent of his crimes. Megan's heart ached as she saw Alex's hesitation, the fear still lingering beneath his surface. The memories Victor tried to suppress were like ghosts haunting them both. The confrontation escalated as Megan pressed Victor for the truth, demanding answers about Ethan and the other children. Victor's defiance only fueled her resolve. Alex's conflicted emotions erupted: anger, sorrow, and the desperate need for a closure. In that charged moment, the fragile strength Alex had been building broke through. With Megan's support, he confronted his past head-on, setting in motion a chain of events that would bring long-awaited justice. Inside the dim cabin, Alex's emotions swirled in turmoil. The man before him was the architect of years of pain and loss. Yet the boy he once was felt trapped beneath layers of fear and confusion. Memories flickered, fragments of a life stolen, of darkness he had tried to bury deep inside. Victor's cold words cut through the room, but it was Alex's silence that spoke volumes. The internal battle waged fiercely. Part of him wanted to flee, to erase the nightmare and pretend it never happened. But another part, fueled by Megan's unwavering presence and strength, yearned for truth and freedom. Megan watched closely, offering quiet encouragement, reminding Alex that reclaiming his past was the first step toward healing. With a trembling voice, Alex finally broke the silence, demanding answers about his childhood, the fate of his friends, and most painfully his own identity. As Victor faltered, caught off guard by Alex's courage, Megan and Daniel seized the moment to record the confession. The tension cracked, and justice seemed within reach. Alex's decision was more than a confrontation. It was a reclaiming of self. He chose to face the darkness rather than let it define him. The moment marked a turning point, one that would echo far beyond the cabin walls and into a future filled with hope. The sterile white walls of the testing lab felt cold and impersonal as Megan sat clutching the results in her trembling hands. The small slip of paper bore the culmination of 27 years of hope, grief, and relentless searching. A match. The DNA confirmed what her heart had dared to believe Alex Parker was, in fact. Ethan Turner, her long-lost son. Tears welled up and spilled freely down Megan's cheeks as a flood of emotions overwhelmed her. Relief, disbelief, joy, and sorrow mingled in a chaotic storm. After so many years of silence, the impossible had become real. The boy she had lost was alive. Alex, standing beside her, struggled to process the confirmation. His face reflected a complex mix of shock, tentative happiness, and the weight of her past finally unburdened. For the first time, the fragmented pieces of his identity began to coalesce into a whole. News of the breakthrough spread quickly, capturing the attention of local media and missing persons organizations. Megan and Ethan's story became a beacon of hope for countless families still searching for answers, a testament to perseverance against all odds. In that moment, the ache of the past didn't disappear, it softened into something new. A beginning, a chance to heal, to rebuild, and to reclaim the life stole, and so long ago. The arrest of Victor Lang sent shockwaves through law enforcement and the community alike, once a ghost haunting the darkest corners of human trafficking networks. Victor now faced the full weight of justice, charged with kidnapping, trafficking, and countless other crimes. His days of evasion were finally over. Court proceedings were intense and emotionally charged. Megan and Ethan, formerly Alex, were called to testify. Their courage inspiring many. The truth poured out, exposing the horrific details of the children's abduction and the shadowy operations that had exploited them. For the first time, the victims' stories were heard in a court of law. As Victor's conviction loomed, a sense of closure began to settle among the families affected. Though the scars of trauma remained, the long nightmare was finally unraveling. Megan's unwavering pursuit had not only reunited her with her son, but also dismantled a dangerous network, bringing hope to others still searching. The media spotlight shone brightly on Megan and Ethan, their story a powerful reminder of resilience and justice. Their journey resonated far beyond Portland and Seattle, sparking renewed calls for better protections for vulnerable children and stronger law enforcement efforts. For Megan, the victory was bittersweet. The pain of years lost could never be erased. But the promise of a new beginning gave her strength. Together, she and Ethan faced a future shaped by healing, determination, and the unbreakable bond of family reclaimed. The first weeks after the DNA confirmation were a whirlwind of emotions for Megan and Ethan. Their reunion, though filled with joy, was also laced with awkwardness and uncertainty. 27 years apart had created a chasm neither knew how to bridge easily. Megan's cozy apartment became a safe haven where they began piecing together lost time. Simple routines, shared meals, long conversations, and quiet moments became the foundation of their rebuilding relationship. Yet, beneath the surface, the weight of absence lingered. There were questions without answers and memories Ethan couldn't fully grasp. Rachel, the family therapist, stepped in to guide them through the turbulent waters of reconnection. Her gentle sessions provided a space for both to express fears, hopes, and frustrations without judgment. She emphasized patience, reminding them that healing was a journey, not a race. Megan found herself learning new ways to be a mother, balancing nurturing with giving Ethan the freedom to rediscover himself. Ethan, in turn, wrestled with conflicting feelings. Gratitude for the reunion, anger at the years lost, and the challenge of reclaiming an identity stolen by trauma. Together, they faced the daunting task of weaving their fractured past into a shared future. Though the path was uncertain, each day brought small victories, smiles exchanged, trust built, and the fragile beginnings of a family once torn apart. As days passed, Ethan found himself navigating a complex maze of emotions. The name Ethan Turner was more than just a label, it was a key to a life he had never truly known. The memories were fragmented, like shards of glass reflecting a past both distant and painful. Therapy sessions with Rachel became a lifeline. She helped Ethan confront the trauma buried deep within him, guiding him to reclaim his story on his own terms. It wasn't easy. There were moments of denial, anger, and profound sadness. But slowly, he began to accept the truth. Megan witnessed his struggle with a mixture of heartache and hope. She understood that the boy who had been lost was still finding his way home, not just physically, but emotionally. She offered patience and unwavering support. Knowing that healing required time and space, Ethan also sought purpose beyond his own recovery. Inspired by Megan's courage and his own experiences, he started volunteering with organizations that aided survivors of abduction and trafficking. Sharing his story became a source of strength, transforming pain into advocacy. The bond between mother and son deepened as they embraced their new reality. Together, they built a future rooted in honesty, resilience, and love, choosing to define themselves not by what was taken, but by the hope they held for tomorrow. One quiet afternoon, Megan and Ethan sat side by side on a weathered bench overlooking the calm waters of Lake Union. The sun cast a warm glow, softening the edges of the world round them. For the first time in years, silence between them felt comfortable, filled not with unspoken fears, but with a shared sense of peace. Ethan glanced at his mother, his eyes reflecting both vulnerability and newfound strength. "I don't know what the future holds," he said softly. "But I'm ready to face it. With you." Megan reached out, squeezing his hand gently. "We'll take it one day at a time," she replied, together. In that moment, the years of separation, pain, and unanswered questions felt less like a barrier and more like a bridge connecting to hearts determined to heal. They shared a quiet smile, a promise forged not in words, but in the unbreakable bond of love rediscovered. As a gentle breeze swept across the park, a vibrant yellow kite soared high into the clear blue sky. Megan and Ethan watched in silence, their hearts lifting with the colorful symbol of freedom and renewal. The kite danced effortlessly, carried by the wind, a reminder that, despite the storms of the past, new beginnings were always possible. Ethan smiled, feeling the lightness he hadn't known in decades. "That kite," he said softly. "It's like everything we lost is finally starting to fly free." Megan nodded, tears shimmering in her eyes. No matter how dark the night, the dawn always comes, and with it, hope. Their journey was far from over, but as the kite traced its graceful path across the sky, they knew they were no longer defined by their past. Instead, they were moving forward together toward a future filled with promise. And as the kite disappeared into the horizon, Megan whispered to herself, "This is just the beginning."